Rev up your engines! Well, today I'm going to talk all about turbochargers so you can make a wise decision in the car you buy and maintain. Now, in theory, turbochargers are a very simple idea. The exhaust gas blows in here and spins the one side of the turbine blade. Around it goes. On the other side of the turbine is blades that suck in fresh air, then pump the fresh air into the engine. Take World War II, the B-17 bombers. They had turbochargers on them because there isn't that much air way up in the stratosphere, so you need to compress what little there is to make the piston engines work correctly. And some of the later model ones had both superchargers and turbochargers on the same B-17 bombers to ram as much air as possible inside. So you get all that extra power. And of course, in a bomber, you want all the power you want to carry the bombs to make the plane go as fast as it can so it can escape from planes trying to shoot it down. Well, you want that technology in a car, you will get speed. By ramming all that extra air into the engine, you're effectively increasing the combustion pressure of the engine so it has more power. But with that extra pressure comes extra wear. The engines wear out faster. The engine bearings can wear out faster. Now, the turbos themselves are generally pretty well made. Take a Ford EcoBoost. Now, I've seen some go 150,000 miles, but I've also seen them break at 100,000 miles, so they will break sooner than I'd want them to break in my own car. And factory turbos like in this Mitsubishi Evolution are super expensive. It's $2,300 for a brand new one. Now, you can get Chinese new ones. Other companies make ones, sometimes as little as $200. You'll have no idea if they're going to work right like a factory one does. So they are super expensive to replace when they do break down. So there are some reputable companies out there that rebuild turbos, especially for companies like Volvo that have turbos for a long time, and there's a history of people actually fixing the things. But they're still expensive to replace. I personally wouldn't want a turbocharged vehicle, but the power guys, hey, that's what they're going for. People just like the power. Take this. This is a 2-liter Mitsubishi engine. Without a turbo, it puts out 120 horsepower. With this Mitsubishi Evolution 2-liter and a turbocharger, it puts out 271 horsepower. A lot more power. There's no arguing that. And theoretically, turbocharged cars get better gas mileage because you're ramming more air in. But that's all a bunch of nonsense in the real world. Because if you only drove 30 miles an hour like a turtle, yeah, it would get better gas mileage with the extra air. But people with turbos, when they drive fast, they love hitting the gas and whoo, and the engine revs up. As soon as you start revving the engine, your gas mileage goes down the toilet. So in real world, the people who buy turbocharged cars, in my experience with my own customers, they all got worse gas mileage because they drove them faster and wore everything out faster. Now, there are things you can do to make your turbos last as long as possible. Even this old 2003 is both water and oil cooled. You want to keep clean coolant in so it doesn't corrode the turbocharger. And you want to make sure you don't have any leaks in the cooling system. If it gets low, air gets into the turbocharger, air doesn't cool it, it has to have water in it to cool it. So make sure your cooling system is in tip-top shape and that your temperature gauge runs normal. And of course, the next thing is, make sure you have clean engine oil. The engine oil both cools the turbocharger and lubricates it. Dirty oil will destroy it. Even these old ones and on any turbocharged engines. Change the engine oil more frequently than normal. Now, decades ago, the manufacturers of turbocharged cars told you when you drive it hard, when you come to stop, let it idle for a couple of minutes so that the water and the oil will cool the turbo down. Modern turbos are better made, better materials, they're more efficient, and they don't tell you that you need to do that anymore. But me, if I was driving like an absolute lunatic for half an hour, when I parked it, I'd let it idle for 4 or 5 minutes before I'd shut it down, just to help cool it down. Now, realize all the manufacturers are going to smaller turbocharged engines. Ford's dumping a bunch of their V8s and putting V6 with twin turbos on them to get 300-400 horsepower. Little bitty cars with 1.0 liter engines are putting turbochargers on them. Realize the lifespan of those cars is going to be drastically reduced by installing a turbocharger on the system. And as I said, don't be fooled by the gas mileage ratings. They're not real on turbocharged cars. You drive them hard, the gas mileage is going down. I'll give you an example. I had a supercharged Mustang. It was a Shelby Cobra GT500. 2013. Had a big old supercharger on it. That thing was rated in town at like, I don't know, 12, 13 miles a gallon. I got 3 because I was driving the heck in that supercharger that does the same thing. Only instead of using exhaust gas, it used a fan belt on the engine with a supercharger on top that pumped air into the engine. Same thing, it's just pumping more air into the engine. And I got 3 miles a gallon driving that thing hard. So if you're gonna get a turbocharged car, don't expect to get good gas mileage unless you drive like a little old lady going to church on Sunday. You drive it hard, your gas mileage is gonna go pfft. Now, when you see all the power this old thing has, well, it doesn't have it now. It was rated at 271, but only 120 with no turbo. This thing runs like a dog. And the scan tool isn't giving good information because I actually think the computer of the thing is going out. But let's check the boost on it. It's a cheaper made vehicle. As are most Mitsubishis, there's no boost gauge on the car anywhere. So we're gonna hook one up. And in this case, it's fairly simple. Here's the intake. There's a nice vacuum line right here. We'll just pull it off, then get our $25 boost gauge and plug it in. It's just vacuum activated. As you can see now, it's plugged into the vacuum line, so we'll get the boost gauge. Good thing it's got a long hose, and bring it inside. Then we'll start her up. Now first it measures vacuum pressure. Then as we rev it up, it'll go into the boost if it's working. In this case, the booster's actually working. Now we have the scan tool hooked up and we're watching ignition timing at idle. And as you can see, it's jumping around. It's 3, 7, 4, bouncing all around. This means at a minimum, it's gonna need a timing belt replacement. It's bouncing all around. Problem with the timing, I mean, it could even be worn cams and stuff, who knows? But this does have a rubber timing belt. I would advise starting by replacing that. Now we're gonna double check the computer reading with an actual timing gun. It's hooked up to the battery of the spark plug. It is kind of hard to see, but there's a dot on the flywheel. The dot should remain stationary in the position as it fires because it's supposed to fire the same place all the time when it's just idling. In this case, the dot is moving around. So that shows us the data from the computer is correct. The timing is changing. It's going from 9 degrees sometimes to 0. It's supposed to be 5. It should stay the same since it's bouncing around. That means that the timing is off. This has a rubber timing belt inside. That's the first thing that needs replacing. God knows if it's ever been changed. It's an old car. It's 18 years old. Maybe it wasn't even put on right in the first place. That's where you got to start on this engine. But as long as we got it apart, let's do a compression test. Now, since you never know with an old engine, let's do a compression test. I screwed it into number 1, and let's see what happens. All right, number 1 has like 130 pounds or so, which isn't horrible, so we'll check the rest. Number 2 is about 160. Number 3 is about 145. And number 4, about 145. So the engine is worn a little. Cylinder number 1's the one that often wear out on these engines. It's not outrageous, it's worn. I noticed one thing, and that was the number 2 plug didn't seem to be in very tight. It just slid right off without me breaking it loose. Some of this could be as dumb as somebody didn't put the plugs in tight enough. So let's make sure we get them in nice and snug. First we'll tighten them in by hand, then we'll make sure they're nice and snug. You can feel it grip. There, now it's snug. Do all the rest. It's best to do this on a cold engine. Aluminum's kind of tricky. You don't want it on a hot engine. This one's ice cold, better to put them in. Put on the coils and the plug wires, flip them back on, and bolt the coils back on. Now let's do a little prayer and see if that loose spark plug makes any difference. Now it seems a little better. We're going to take it for a road test. But I know for a fact it's going to need at least a timing belt, and you pray that the cams weren't worn. All right, now we're going to take it on a little road test. See what it does. We'll get on the straightaway, wait till everybody's out of the way, then we'll give it some gas. Here we go. Not perfect, but better than it was before. Still got a little hesitation because the timing's off. And it is idling a little smoother than it was before. You see the gear shift isn't shaking. We'll do a little first gear takeoff. There's a lot more than it used to have. Still not perfect because the timing's off. You can feel it jerking, but now it's going. Well, it may not be perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was. If he doesn't want to put any money into it, at least it's drivable now. But I would say put a new timing belt on it. But at least it's more a fast and furious car than it was to start out with. since I'm always giving information out to you guys free, today I'm giving you out free compression tester. To have a chance to win, place a clean, non-defensive comment on the YouTube comments below, and the winner will be chosen randomly by computer to get a compression tester to see if their car they're looking at really has a good engine, or the compression shot you want to run far away from it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.